Good morning, and this is Mrs. Perry with NTI day number 7 with the theme. Okay, and this, I believe this goes along more with science because it's kind of thinking about the different materials, which we should have talked about in the beginning of the year. Now, I'm going to read, and I just want you to follow, and I'm going to start with the title, okay? Colorful crayons inside a crayon factory. If you are like most kids, you've probably drawn a picture with crayons. Have you ever wondered how crayons are made? So now look, are you noticing where it says number 1? It looks like to me, this is how you do something. So this is called a procedural text. It tells me the steps, okay? So it's a procedural text. So going back to number 1, mix crayon wax. Crayon wax is melted in pots at the factory. Colored powder called pigment is mixed into the wax. Number 2, mold. Colorful hot liquid wax is poured into crayon-shaped holes called molds. The liquid wax fills up the molds. Number 3, cool. The crayon wax is left to cool, then it is pushed out of the molds. Hard crayons come out. So I'm already noticing that it's staying in order. So let's look at the next part of that page. So we're looking at, oh, sorry, I don't know what happened in number 4. Let me go back, I'm sorry. There it is. So number 4. Check. Workers check the hard crayons. Crayons that are not perfect are put aside to be melted in another batch. Okay, so now we're moving on to step 5. Okay, so number 5, the 5th step is to label. Perfect crayons are taken to a machine. It puts a label on each crayon. Finished crayons are sorted by color. Number 6, box. The labeled crayons are placed into boxes and the tops are closed. The colorful crayons are ready. Okay, so we know the different steps in making a crayon. There's 6 steps. Now let's look at this colorful crayon facts. It takes about 3 to 5 minutes to make a crayon. Most 2 to 8-year-olds color about half an hour every day. Experts say that the smell of crayon is one of the easiest scents to recognize. I think I'd have to agree with that. The nickname for worn down crayons is leftovers. Most children in the United States will wear down 730 crayons by the time they're 10 years old. Wow, those are some interesting facts. So let's look and let's answer some of these questions. Okay. Now, what happens during the first step of crayon making? Oh my goodness. If that's not a green question, I don't know what else is. So, what happens during the first step of crayons? Let's go back in the text and let's look. Okay, so if I look here, it says it wants me to mix crayon wax is melted in pots at the factory. Colored powder called pigment is mixed into the wax. So if I look here, my first part is going to be what happened during the first step of the crayon making. Crayon wax is melted in pots. Okay, so notice how by looking at green questions, I went back and I looked at the very first step, and I knew it was the first step because it had the number 1 on it. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Each step is a process. Each step in a process in part. What might happen if step 4, check, is skipped? Well, I know if I remember going back in that text that, if they're not perfect, they're put aside. So if they're not put aside, I might get a broken crayon in my new crayon box. That seems like a pretty reasonable answer, because if they don't check them and they're broken, looks like I'm paying for a new crayon that's already broken. Okay, so how long does it take to make a crayon? Oh, I know I went back in the text, and it takes about 3 to 5 minutes. But let me go back in the text and definitely make sure, because I don't want to guess. I want to make sure I'm right. I was right, because if I look right here, it says it takes about 3 to 5 minutes to make a crayon. So if I go back to number 3 right here, it takes 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, so that was definitely a green question right here. So now let's look. What is the primary purpose of this passage? Okay, so in this, sometimes authors just kind of want to explain things to us. So I think the purpose of this passage, notice I'm using that sentence starter, is to explain how to make crayons. That's the reason why the author is writing today. He wants us to know, or he or she wants us to know, how they even make crayons. So again, here are what we did. We read it and we went back and we found each answer, because each of these answers was in the text. Each step in the process is important. What might happen if step 4? This one you might have to stop and think about. So this is more of a red question right here. We have to stop and we have to think about it. The number 1 was a green question. How long does it take to make a crayon? We found that right in the text. I was able to put my finger on it and highlight it. So that's a green question. Now, number 4 is more of a yellow question. I have to slow down and I just kind of have to think about my answer, because it says in the text, but it's not as clear as a green question. If you have questions, please email us. I look forward to seeing this exit slip. Please make sure you're emailing it to me, Miss Spinks, or Miss Goatley, just one of us, okay? Have a great day, and if you need any